Hi, Douglas Simonson here, coming to you from Mexico with a painting demonstration. Today I'm going to be doing a nude of Steve Chen. Steve Chen is a Chinese bodybuilder who modeled for me a few years ago in California. We met in LA and then we drove up to Malibu and found a deserted stretch of beach for our photo shoot. This is the photograph I'm going to be working from today, and this is the tweaked version. This is something I almost always do. I'll tweak the image in Photoshop using a couple of filters to make it easier to paint from. And if you want to know more about how I do that, you can check out my video on this channel called Using Photoshop to Make Photos Easier to Paint From. Today's painting is going to be a small acrylic sketch on heavy watercolor paper. And I begin by sketching out the image onto the paper with pencil. A lot of times I'll just put up the time-lapse video and put a music track under it, but today I'm going to be walking you through the whole thing. I'll be commenting all the way through on mixing colors, warm versus cool, a lot of stuff. So you might want to watch the whole thing. So with the pencil drawing in place, next I squeeze out the main colors I'm going to need to get started. From right to left, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, and cadmium red medium. First, I mix a dark purplish tone for the darkest shadows on the body using blue, alizarin, and a touch of yellow. This muted green tone that I'm mixing up now, using ultramarine, cadmium yellow, a bit of white, and some cadmium red, is for the cooler flesh tones. Believe it or not, this grayed down green, which is kind of close to khaki, is a very useful color for cool flesh tones. Next, I mix up a medium dark flesh tone using my two reds, a bit of blue, a bit of burnt umber, and a tiny bit of white. And lastly, I make black by using burnt umber and ultramarine blue. This is my standard mix for black, and that's what I'm going to start painting with, the darkest darks. I usually cover the pencil drawing with an acrylic wash before starting, but for some reason I didn't this time. Don't ask me why, I don't remember. You really can do it either way, although I usually find it's easier with a neutral tone rather than painting on a pure white background, but you can do it either way. After I put in the two places with black hair, I start adding the darkest flesh tones. This whole process is made much easier because I have the tweaked version of the image for reference, as well as the original. Next, I start adding that very red medium dark flesh tone. And I see that it's a little too dark. Sometimes you don't know until you get it onto the painting. So I remix it, make it a bit lighter. Now it works better. Next, I'm going to add the khaki tone for the cooler flesh tones. I'm seeing that what I have is a bit dark, so I lighten it up, and I also add a bit more red to mute the green. Now I put some of that color in and I see that it's still a bit dark, so I lighten it some more. Now it looks better. This is a big part of painting in my experience, mixing up colors you think will work, then adding them to the painting and seeing that they're too light or too dark or too warm or too cool, and then adjusting them. You never know if a color is going to work until you actually get it into the painting. Now, the next lighter flesh tone is not cool like the khaki, but very warm. So I'm mixing up a kind of orange with my cadmium red and cadmium yellow, and then I'm calming it down with a bit of burnt umber. As soon as I add the color to the painting, I see that it's still not light enough. This happens a lot. It always seems to be darker in the painting than it was on the palette. Anyway, I lighten it up some more, and that's much better. So right now the orange looks way too intense, but I'm trusting that as I continue it will end up looking just right. Have you noticed I'm alternating between warm and cool as I move from dark to light shades? Next to that very warm orange, I need a cool color. So I use alizarin crimson, which is a cool red, and some white. And once again, it's a little too dark, so I need to lighten it up some more. But doesn't that cool pink look great next to the orange? I love it. I'm continuing to alternate warm and cool, so I'm now mixing up a warm light tone with cadmium yellow and white, and once again, I love the way that looks next to the cool pink. Now I do some touch-ups to the darker tones of the face before I add the yellow highlights. Now I need a background color. All I know is I want a brown. So I start with burnt umber. Then I add a little bit of cadmium yellow, a little bit of red, then some white, and I like it. I think it'll work. Now that I've got the background in, the figure is just looking a little too cool overall, plus a bit too muted. The colors are a little dead. So I want to warm it up and make the colors more vivid. I'm also softening the highlights and cooling them down a bit. And I'm also darkening some of the darker shadows, adding some further contrast. All of this is fine-tuning that you can't really do until you're almost done and you can see how things are working together or not. Now I'm putting in the final highlights, pure white with just a touch of yellow. And there's the final painting. I call it Nude Bodybuilder on Tan Background. Usually I say you can see this painting on my website, but in this case it's already been sold. But you can see a lot more original works at DouglasSimonson.com. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching the painting process and maybe learned some stuff. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. That inspires me to do more videos. And if you got a little inspired watching me paint today, great. Put on your painting pants and go paint. Magic could happen.